Unbelievable. Unbelievable. There's a schus of about stir. Okay, today's daf, I believe, is Kuf Ayin Hey. And we are up to the bottom of Kuf Ayin Dalud Amud Beis. There's five lines from the bottom. There's a dot, Amar Afun. So that's where we'll start from. So yesterday, at the end of the day, we learned that the arevus that happens by a chasana is somewhat ceremonial because the Arav is not really being mishabed himself. My time on mitzvah huda ovid lavidi chasra. Yeah, I'm not really an Arav, but it's a mitzvah to help the shidduch get married. We don't care about the repercussions. And anyway, it's not like she gave him money that I'm guaranteeing. Ksubas found money for her. And therefore the Arav is not mishabed himself. Although we did learn that an Arav Kabbalan is mishabed himself, and in fact, that's what we do by our chasnas. It's an Arav Kabbalan. A. B is the Gemara at Svaris to say that a father is always mishabed himself for his son, just like Moshe did for his son Rafuna. So by our chasnas, most of the time, the father is the Arav. Although Shol Anisal told me last night that he was once by a chasna, and the father B'dafka didn't want to be an Arav for his son, so they asked Shol to step in, which is somewhat problematic because the Gemara also tells us that if the chasna has no money, then for sure the Arav doesn't really have in mind to be mishabed himself. If the chasna has money, so that means the Arav doesn't feel that there's a high chance that they're going to come after him. Only there will he be mishabed himself. Zogt Gemara, Amar Avuna, Shchiv Mira, Shehikdish Kol Nechasim. A Shchiv Mira that was makdish all of his nechasim. And then he said, V'yomar Mana Leploini Biyadi, which means there's one Mana that wouldn't go to Hektish because it's not mine. The halach is then when he's believed, and we take it away, so to speak, from Hektish, and we give it to the person whom he says it belongs to. Maybe he's just trying to get some money out of Hektish, and he's saying it belongs to his friend Ruvain, and then maybe they'll split the money, but at least they'll rescue it from Hektish. Zok Gemara, people don't play games like that. Chazaka ein adam oisa kanunya al Hektish. No one's going to play games to take money away from Hektish. Zok Gemara, logically, if no one would play games to take money away from Hektish, we could also agree that no one would play games to take money away from their very own children. Yet, frek the Gemara, Mask of Lord Abnachman, v'chi adam oisa kanunya albanov. Would somebody make a kanunya to steal money, to take money away from his children? Surely not. Yet, the Rav and Shmuel, the Amritar value, Rav and Shmuel both agreed to the following halacha. Shchiv Mira, she'amar mana leploini biyadi. So a Shchiv Mira, by default, all of his nechasim are going to go to his children. Yet he declares that there's money that I have that belongs to Reuben. So that's exactly the same thing is the case of Ekti. Would he make a kanunya to get money away from his children? Just like he wouldn't do that to get it away from Hektish, so too he wouldn't do that to get away from his children. Nevertheless, Amar Tanu Noistin, only if he says, actually, children, give this money to Reuven, that's when he's believed, and therefore they give money to that Reuven. But Lo Amar Tanu, if he just said, Reuven, there's $100 of Reuven's in my house, but he didn't say, and go give it to him, then ain't Noistin. Which means, the question is, why not? A person doesn't make a kanunya in Bana, so he must be saying the truth. Yet we don't listen to him when he says plainly that there's $100 share that belongs to Reuven. Why don't you believe him? There must be a new reason why you don't believe him. Not a person wouldn't make kanunya to take away from his kids, but maybe the reason why he's doing it, maybe there's another reasonable explanation why he's doing it that also would say that it's not true. And that is, Alma Adam Asoi Shaloi Laspias Bana. He doesn't want people talking about, oh, this guy is a millionaire. Imagine when he dies, everyone say, oh, his kids are so rich, they just yacht him so much money. He doesn't want that image. And therefore, he's telling people, yeah, I owe him money, I owe him money. So it's not really our wealth. So there is such a concept that people do that. So that's why unless he actually said Tanu. If he just said that $1,000 here belongs to Reuven, we'll say he doesn't really mean it. He's just trying to dispel a rumor that may or downplay the fact that they're very wealthy. So, Frag the Gemara, Hachanami, why don't you say the same thing by Hektish? Adam also Shaloi Las Bias Atzmai. When he gave the money to Hektish, and then he says, Reuben, some of this money is Reuben's. Who said he means it? Who said it should be that money? Maybe all he's trying to do is downplay, but people might say that he has a lot of money. No, that's why I said Shalom Asbias Atzmai. So it's interesting because if he gave it all to Hektish, like Yudovi said, he's poor anyway, right? But I guess he didn't even want people to think he was rich, that he gave so much to Hektish. Yeah, in those days, a person was probably honored for giving to Hektish. Today, if someone gave everything away, he's not honored anymore. What have you done for me lately? You know why Rav Huna said, but that by Hektish, the person is Neman, to say that $1,000 belongs to Reuben, is the Nakat Shtar. Reuben had a star. So the fact that Reuben had a star that says that $1,000 is his, that gives the claim of the Makdish credibility, because he's not out of the blue saying that he owes Reuben the money. There's a star here to record that. As the Rishbam says, Kiko Amar Afuna, the Nakat Shtar Ahu Malva. All I'm saying is that the Malva has a star, and it's a legitimate star. Zok to Gemara, so we have to juxtapose this against what Rav and Shmuel said. Michlal the Rav and Shmuel, the loy nakat star. Are you telling me that Rav and Shmuel who said that if someone just says, I owe Reuben money, you don't give it to them, the children don't have to give it to them unless he actually said Tanu. So you're telling me that Malva in Rav and Shmuel's case didn't have a star, and that's why there's that distinction that you don't give the Malva the money in that case? But the problem is, Omar Tnu Noisnin. The Rav and Shmuel also, they made a distinction. Stamazoi, if you said Mandala Pliny Biadi, you don't give it. But if he said Tnu, if the Shimmer actually instructed his kids pay, then you do give it. Why? Milval Pava. If you're telling me, speaking that Reuben didn't have a star, at best it's a Milval Peh. And what's the problem with a Milval Peh? Rav Shmuel, the Amritar value, Milval Peh, Einoi Goiva, Loi Min HaYorshim, V'loi Min HaLakuches. Rav and Shmuel said that a Milval Peh, you cannot be Goiva from Yorshim. So even if this Shchivra said Tanu, you still shouldn't give it, because it's a Milval Peh at best, because there's no star here. Ella, you have to say that Rav and Shmuel only stated their halacha by a milva b'shtar. Ella Amar of Nachman Idi v'Idi denakit star. We're forced to say that there's a star. So if that's the case, it goes back to our original shaila. Why did Rav and Shmuel say that if someone says money la pliny biyadi, that the children don't have to give the money to Pliny? V'lekasha had mekuyim had loy mekuyim. In the case of the hektish, where a person is believed to say Reuben has this $1,000, that's when Reuben had a star that was mekuyim. It was already verified in Bezdin. That's going to have validity, and therefore I'm believed to say that this money belongs to Reuben. But in the case of Rav and Shmuel, although the Malva, the person who the Shchivra claims has that money, although he has a star, the star was not mekuyim. And therefore, it doesn't have that same strength to validate what he said. As the Rishbam says, El Amar Rab Nachman, Bein Zeh Sha'amar Shchivra Amana LaPlani Biyadi, Ubali Parim in a hektish. In the case of hektish, Ubein Zeh Habali Par Mibanav, Kulu Shtari Nikiti. In either case, the person that we want to credit with that money is holding a star. The Maski Bey by Shchivra Ramana, that he is owed that. V'loi Kasha. Ha the hektish is Bimukuyim Dika Henpik. The Bezdin has already certified the star that Reuben is saying the fellow owes the money. However, in our case, in the case of Rav and Shmuel, the star was not mukuyim. And therefore, Amar Tanu Kaimel Shtari. If the father didn't just say that I owe Reuben money, but the father said, give it to him, that we consider like a Kiyam Hashtar. Amar Tanu Kaimel Shtari V'litzarech Ma V'likiyumi. once the father said Tanu, we no longer need to bring Adam to verify the star. Tanu is such a vote of confidence on that star, it makes it like it's a star McQueen. And therefore, so whether or not this would be a milva bishtar depends on whether or not the father instructed his children to actually pay it. As the Rashbam says, the father just said, but he didn't say tnu. We're afraid that he's only saying it not because it's true, but he doesn't want his children to look rich, and therefore this Reuben who's holding the star will not be able to collect unless he could independently verify the star in Bezdin, and then of course it's like any other milva star where surely he would be able to collect. Gewaltig. Zog the Heilige Gemara weiter. Omar Rabba said, Shriv Mirasha Omar, Mona Leploini Biodi. A Shriv said that Mona Leploini Biodi, Reuben is owed $1,000. And then he died, and now Reuben's coming to collect his money that the Shriv when he was alive, said is owing to him. The Amru Yisoimim Paranu. And the Yisraelim said, we paid already. Naaman, they're believed to say that they paid. It's logical that they would have paid. So therefore, we will accept that they paid. But what if the father said, Tenu mana laplani, which is actually even a greater hischayvus to pay, and then the Amru Yisraelim Paranu, Einamanim, do not believe. Frag the Gemara, that's very illogical, and it's very irrational. Klapalaya, it's exactly the opposite. Ibcha mistraber. And this is what it should say. Amar Tenu Mana, if the father said Tenu Mana, which means the father is 100% sure that he owes the money, because he's not just mentioning that he owes it, he's instructing his children to pay it. Kiven the Pascha Avu and Lemilsa, since the father made it very clear that this is the fact, and there's no doubt, in fact, that money is owed, there Ikalamemer de Pare. There it makes sense to say that the children paid it, because their father was very clear that the money was owed. So there they should be believed if they claim that they paid, because it's logical that they might have paid. But if he just said money laploni biyadi and he didn't say tenu, that means the father himself isn't so 100% sure that he really owes the money. Therefore, why would you think that the children would have paid? Their father wasn't really confident that he owed the money. Even lepasak avu and lemilsa. Since the father wasn't clear and definitive, so for Keret, the svara should be that if they said they paid in a situation where their father wasn't even so clear that he owed the money, there they shouldn't be believed. So why would they have paid? If their father was definitive, there, if they claimed they paid, it would be logical. So therefore, we have to scratch what we just quoted from Rabbah, and we have to say something else. Ali itmar hachi itmar. If Rabbah said anything, this is what must have been said. Shriv mirasha amar mana leploini biyadi. A Shriv said mana leploini biyadi. V'amru yisoimim chazar v'amar lanu abba paraiti. Yes, my father said they owed Reuben $10,000. But after that, when you weren't around, he told us, you know what? Come to think of it, yes, I did owe him money, but I paid him back. So the father corrected himself. They're in the Amanim, they're believed. My time it kuri mitkar. The father was a little bit unclear. He's a shivera. At first, he remembered that he owed money, and then he remembered that he paid back. So that's believable. But if he said tenu mana leploini, that's a very clear expression that he's 100% sure, in fact, that he owes the money. And then v'amru yisoimim chazav v'amar abba paraiti. And then the yisoimim claim that their father recalled that he actually paid. They're einaman. They're not believe. The meisa de pare, if in fact it's true that the father had already paid back, loya amar tu. He would never have expressed himself with such clarity and instruct his children to pay. So therefore, we wouldn't believe that the father changed his mind. Boy Rava. Shchivmera shahoida mahu. So what happened? Zokter Rashbam, Baal Choyvoy, Toyin Loy, Moneli Biyot. Someone comes to a Shchivmera and says, you owe me $10,000. The Amar Loy Hain, and the Shchivmera said, yes, you're right. Now, in the case of a Bori, Let's say someone walks up to me and says, Simon, you owe me $10,000. I said, sure I do. I can say, I never meant that. I was joking with you. You come up to me on the street and you say, I owe you money. I'm going to say yes. But of course, it's not true. And the words that the Gemara uses is, Mishat anibach, I was playing with you. But what if someone comes over to me and says, Simon, you owe $10,000, and there's two people standing there, and I tell those two people, Reuven and Shimon, Atam Edai, I'm admitting it in front of you to Edim, and I'm acknowledging that I owe money, there, for sure, I cannot say I was joking. You appointed Edim. Or if I tell to Edim, write it up in a star, that I'm admitting that I owe the money, that's also not revocable, and that is something that he wouldn't be able to say was joking. The question is, by a shchivmera, would you say the same thing? Boy rov a shchivmera shahoida mahu. Tzarech lemer atam edai. Do we say that he was just joking around unless he actually appoints Adam to witness his hoida? Or ein tzarech lemer atam edai. And the Bach breaks up these two shilas, so therefore he fears us first on this shilah number one. And then he says as follows. Bishas Misa, I'm sorry, and then he skips a little bit to over here. Mish Adam Mishata, Bishas Misa, Ein Adam Mishata, Bishas Misa. This that we say, that if someone comes over to me on the street and I say, yes, I owe you the money, we'll say I was joking around. Maybe someone on his deathbed doesn't joke around. Is it possible that maybe somebody on his deathbed doesn't joke around, and therefore him agreeing would be a good idea? And then the Bach says there's another shayla. Tzarech loymar ksuvu or not? Does he have to instruct Adam to write it down, or is he believed anyway? After this shayla was asked, they were poshed it as follows: Ein Adam mishata b'shas misa. When someone's on his deathbed, he's not playing games. We're not going to say what he said he was joking. He's dead serious. And he doesn't have to instruct you to write it down in order for us to accept it, because v'divish chivmera kiksuvim v'chemesurim dami. The words of a shchivmera carry weight. The Tosha speaks out. It doesn't literally mean that it's as if there was a star, just because the shchivmera admitted it. It just means when he says something, it's serious, and therefore we take him at his word. We don't say mishat anibach, and we don't say that it's required that it should be written down. Now, this idea that right before someone dies, he's a special namonis, we actually had this shaila. We had the shaila once before. There were two tragic stories. One story, I think, was brought down in the Noida Yehuda, where a woman said on her deathbed, she said that I was Mizana Tachas Bailey, or she said that I was married to someone else before and I never got a get, right? And then she survived. And the shaila was, on her deathbed, people don't play jokes, people don't play games, which should be mutter to her husband afterwards or not. That was one shaila. Could be that was shaila Chavez Das. And then, I'm sorry? It probably did. And then the other question was a case where a shaykhit, right before he died, he called in the Rav, and the Rav confirmed that he was of sound mind, and he said that first of all I did many affairs, but more so I never checked my knife, and it's the Veil Travis, and then he dies. Now the question is, do they have to now passel everybody's dishes? And there was also a big shaila about that. It was how it was negated to our sugya, because I think we were discussing Mitava Machas Bisa, that people have an amonus at that time. Okay, Zok Heilige Mishnah weiter. Now this is the last Mishnah of our Masechta, so it's starting to get really exciting. Hamalva es chaveroi bishtar. If someone lends money and it's a milva bishtar, then the halacha is goyvim in a chasim shabbat. Right? We know you could only collect, the malva can only go after the lekuchos if there's a milva bishtar. Now, what if there's no achrayis written in the shtar? The Rishpam speaks out, doesn't matter, because we say achrayis tosofer. By definition, every milva bishtar, the intent is that there should be achrayis, should be recourse, and the only, and even if it's not written in the shtar, we say it's as if it was written in the star. Okay, what about Al Yida Edim, which is basically a milval peh, and there's just Edim that can testify to the fact that this happened? Then goyvin minachasim b'nei you could collect, but only from nechasim b'nei chayrin. Goyveh, not goyvin. Goyvin minachasim b'nei chayrin. Zok to Gemara weiter, the Mishnah weiter, and Kuf Ein Helen days. What about Hoitzi Alov Ksaviyadoi Shulchayv? What if we had an IOU note? So does an IOU note act as a milva b'shtar, or is it just proof that he owes money and it's only like a milva al peh and ain't a goyva min chasim shabadim? The Mishnah Paskins goyva min chasim b'nei as the Rashbam says, the loy goyva min mishabadim. You can't take from mishabadim from the lukuchos. Ela milva hakosav b'shtar sheyesh by edim. There has to be edim because you need two things. The kiva and the ikatarti. There's two factors here. A, there's a star, and B, there's edim. Only that mafkile lakala. Only that will publicize the fact that this loiva is encumbered, and anybody who wants to buy from him will know in advance that they're entering into a little bit of a risk. And therefore, if someone buys property from this loiva, knowing that there is a chance that the malva will come take it away from them, the Lukuchais made a decision that they wanted to buy this property anyway, so they're accepting in the purchase the risk that a malva might come and seize it away. They didn't analyze it carefully. They made sure that there's other properties that they didn't buy from this loiva. So their figuring is he owes 100,000. I bought a property from him, but he still has another couple of $100,000 with the properties that he's holding on to. Therefore, I'm willing to accept that risk. Zok to Gemara Vay, Zok to Heilige Mishnah Vayter. Orev hayoytza la'acher chitim shtaris. Normally, the orev is part of the transaction of the halva. But what if there's a star written up and it's signed by the Edom? And then after the Edom is signed, they wrote in on the star, and Reuben is in the orev. As the Rashbam says, "Shekasa b'soiche star," it is on the star written, but it's achar chasimas ha'edim. He writes, "Ani plenty ben plenty aretz." So does that also have the strength of a revus because it wasn't incorporated into the loan agreement, and the edim aren't signing on it? So the halach is goyvem min yichasam b'nei. It is mechayev the arev, but not that the malva can go after even something that the arev sold. The malva can only go after properties that the arev has at the time of the collection. And the Rashbam says the reason for it is goyvim in the arev ba'arvis shabalpeh. The mil valpeh, the arvis is also the arvis balpeh because it wasn't one of the items upon which the edim signed when they signed the star. Given the loy chasimi edim al arvis. Huadin la arev beloy star achar matan moyes. Huadin, if it was an arev and it wasn't a star at all. So Zok to Gemara, he could take b'nei chayrin. Ma'isa ubal lefnei Rabbi Shmuel. We had a malva who was going after the arev, and the arev was not signed before the edim. The arev was only added on as a footnote to the star. And Rabbi Shmuel Paskin, the Amar goyvim in echasam b'nei. You are an arev, so that addition, that amendment to the star has validity, but it's not considered a milva b'shtar, and therefore the malva can only seize properties that the arev has within his possession, not properties that the arev sold.
This is a case where the arev agrees that he is an arev.
Yes,
he wrote.
That's right. It's not a question of what he's agreeing to. It's in writing that he accepted. Question is, does it take on the same shibud as the shibud in the star? So Amrullah bananas went bananas about this, and he said that this is not a valid arevis at all. I don't consider this at all a valid arevis. As the Rashbam says, the chol arev shalachim atamois lo have arev. You know why he's not an arev? If the arev is within the loan agreement, so then it gives us reason to assume that the malva only lent the money because this arev was willing to take responsibility. That's when the arev is mechuyev as an arev. But if the agreement was already written up and signed, that means the Malva had already agreed to lend the loiva the money without the Arav. Afterwards, the Arav says, I'm going to be an Arav. That wouldn't give him any type of ischayvus at all. So therefore, he's not an Arav. Zok benamis. So we have a machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel, who holds he is an Arav, but not as an Arav from Shavadim, and we have Benamis who holds it's not an Arav at all. Amar Loi. So he told him, Lama. Rabbi Shmuel asked Benamis, why would you say this is not an Arav? Amar Loi, I'll tell you why. What would happen if Reuben owed $100,000 to Beryl, and Beryl was very angry that Reuben wasn't paying back? So Beryl grabs Reuben by the neck, and he says, I'm going to choke you to death unless you pay me right now. And he didn't have money. And Yankel is walking down the street, and he sees Beryl choking Reuben. Well, Amalek tells Beryl, Hanachloi, put him down. What do you want from him? Don't worry, I'll already pay you. Zok to Gemara, he has zero chiv to pay. Potter, you know why? Shaloi al emunas elveyu. This Beryl didn't lend the money to Reuven because he trusted that Yankel is going to pay, because Yankel didn't show up till way later. So the halva was never based on anything to do with Yankel. Therefore, Yankel has no hischayvus, even though he said, I'm going to pay you. He was just trying to save Beryl's life. He was just trying to save Reuben's life. Beryl was choking him to death. Ela'ezahu Arav Shehu Chayiv. What is a valid Arav? Hilveyu Vani Noisenlach. When the Arav says, please lend Reuben the money and I will pay you back. So there, the Malva is only lending the money because of the Arav. There it's Chayiv Shekain al Amunasai Hilveyu. The Omer Rabbi Shmuel. And then Rabbi Shmuel said, Rabbi Shmuel, who argues on Benanis, right? He's arguing on Benanis. This is what he said. If somebody wants to become smart, Yasoik B'dinei Mamnis. He should be Isaac in the Bavas, in what we were just Isaac in now, learning these three Masechtas. You know why? There's no subject in the Torah, as the Bach sticks in, Godol, greater, mehen, than Dinei Mamnis. It involves the most creativity. V'hein k'ma'ayin hanoiveya. Dinei Mamnis is like a wellspring that doesn't stop flowing. And the Harayta Shiyasak with Dinei Mamnis, and if you want to really learn Dinei Mamnis the way it's supposed to be learned, so you can be Zoicha to unleash this wellspring, Yeshamis as Shimon ben Amis. Go learn from Shimon ben Amis. He's got his act together. He knows how to learn Nezikin. So you follow him, then you will become a great Chacham. That is what Rabbi Shmuel said about the Bar Plukta. That's a pretty awesome thing. So the Marsha has a very interesting comment on this. We're all the end of Masechta, so we have the Chaparine, the last little tidbits that we have available to us. So there's on the Marsha on Kuf Ayin Hey Amid Beis. Haraycha Sheyachim Yasek B'Dinei Mamnis She'en Lach Mitzayah. The Soif Perak Haraya, at the end of Perak Haraya, Ma'aseh, this same comment is quoted. V'Hachi Yisasham Am Rabbi Yanai Ma'adichsiv Kimitz Umitz Apayim Yotzi Riv. We learn from here called Talmud Shekayis Olav Rabbi Hamachas V'Shaisik. A Talmud whose Rebbe screams at him. If he didn't understand properly, his Rebbe screams at him V'Shaisik, and he keeps his mouth shut and he accepts. Zoicha Lahafchin Bein Dam Tahar LeDam Tamei. He'll be able to tell the difference one day between Dam Tahar and Dam Tamei. And the second half of the pasuk, Umitz Apayim Yotzi Riv, called Talmud Shekayis Olav Rabbi Pamachas Ubeis. If the Rebbe screams at him twice, and V'Shaisik is still Shaisik, then Zoicha Lahavchin Bein Dinei Mamnis LeDinei Nefashos. He'll be Zoicha to appreciate the difference between Dinei Mamnis and Dinei Nefashos, which is strange. Anybody knows the difference between Dinei Mamnis and Dinei Nefashos. Ditnan Rabbi Shmuel Aimer Haraycha Sheyachkim Yasoik B'Dinei Mamnis She'en Lach Miktay B'Torah Yoisha Mehen She'en Kama'ayin Hanavei, which is our Mishnah that the Gemara quotes in Perek Haraya. V'yesh l'daktik frek to Marsha. Mav chon shayich b'din nefashos l'din mamnis. You need some type of special skill to know the difference between din nefashos and din mamnis. Any little child knows that. Gam ma raya maisi mehai kra. How do you see that from this pasuk? The roitzah sheyachkim yasoik b'din mamnis. Ahachach vana the bein din mamnis l'din nefashos. Where do you see in the pasuk that the special skill that we're learning from this is to be mafkin between dinei mamnis and dinei nefarish. V'dir lefarish Dr. Marsha. Dochi Kamar. Zoicha lahafkin bein dam tamil dam tar. It doesn't mean that you'll tell the difference and you'll be able to see what's dam tar, what's dam tami. That's elementary. Ratzaloymar mashahu beineim. Dam that's in between tame and in between tar, meaning dam that's a suffix. Dani dam suffix l'shar b'nei adam shelo yavchinu bo imu tame imu tar. Yes, dam that's clearly tar, anybody can tell. Dam that's clearly tame, anybody can tell. You're going to get a special skill that the dam that falls in between tame and tar, meaning the dam that everybody else cannot determine if it's tame or tar, that's the dam that you'll be able to discern. Umisafik utame, everybody else will have to be mitame that misafik because they don't know. They ain't sorry for the love truma of a kachim, but you don't burn truma of a kachim because it might not be tame if it touched it. It's only misafik. This fellow will know that with clarity. He will be able to tell im hu tame vadai or hu tar vadai. That's what that means. And therefore, something that's in between. We don't know if it's dinei mamnis or if it's dinei nefashos. He'll know the answer. What does that mean? Tahainu dinei gzelos v'chavolos. Gzelos are dinei mamnis. Chavolos could be dinei nefashos. The pa'amim boim ha-gzelos v'chavolos la'rikas nefesh. Sometimes through genevus and chavolos, it could lead to somebody killing somebody else. Upa'amim einei rak mammon. And sometimes it's only mammon. But pretty much because the Bereishon Hedron, which we're going to learn soon, the dinei mamnis loy boy mumkin. To paskin a dinei mamnis, you don't need such expert dayanim as you need for gzelos and chavolos boy mumkin. Why? Because gzelos and chavolos could lead to dinei nefashos. L'hachi kamar Talmud. That's why the Gemara tells us when we she'ene mumcha mitchila. If someone is not a mumcha, they done dinei mamnis. Zoicha liyos mumcha. So if someone's not such a mumcha at the beginning, but he heart of is indeed a mamnis, which is what our Mishnah is saying from Benamis, from Rabbi Shmuel, that someone who is Isaac in dinei mamnis, that will hone his skill, and he'll be zoicha through harving on dinei mamnis, zoicha liyos mumcha mitoich dinei mamnis u'lahavchin mashahu bei dinei mamnis l'dinei nefashos. He'll be able to understand the difference. The hainu gzelos v'chavolos, the boy mumcha. So there's some dinei mamnis which anybody could do, but by honing your skill there, you'll become much smarter, that you'll even be able to paskin on dinei gzelos v'chavolos that the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us you have to be a mumcha for. Because by being Isaac in the regular dinei mamnis, you'll become a mumcha and you'll even be able to be Isaac in gzelos v'chavolos. That is what the Gemara in Sanhedrin is bringing a raya from our Mishnah over here. Rabbi Shmuel haya mumcha. Rabbi Shmuel was a mumcha. How do you know Rabbi Yishmael was a mumcha? The Mishnah Rabbi Kfar Nismach. Rabbi Yishmael is how he's titled in our Mishnah. So obviously he was a mumcha already. But Vishimin Benanis, it doesn't say Rabbi Shimon Benanis in our Mishnah. It says plain Shimon Benanis. Vishimin Benanis loya yinismach adayinos. He was not musmach yet. The loikari Rabbi Shimon Benanis. He was plain Shimon Benanis. V'hinei Rabbi Yishmael ka'amar v'dinei mamanis the arev. The dinei mamnis of Arev, which is what the discussion is in our Mishnah, what does he say there? But the Shimon Benanis, the non-Rebbe, the plain Shimon Benanis, argued on Rabbi Shmuel, and he also added, even though Shimon Benanis was not a mumcha. So why is he now talking about someone choking somebody to death, which is already a shayla of chavola? But mitoich dinei mamnis, since Benanis put so much effort into understanding dinei mamnis, zacha lahavchin v'din achoinik. Now he was already able to upgrade his skill, and now he could already become a mumcha. Now he could already paskin when it comes to chavolos. V'din achoinik hanageya v'dinei chavolos to boy mumcha. Umay siraya, Rabbi Shmuel Gufei, Rabbi Shmuel himself. Kol say l'Shimon, praise Shimon Benanis. The Gomer, and he said, you want to become a mumcha? Follow Shimon Benanis' lead. Yasik b'dinei mamnis, she'ein lach b'ktzaya. Shunegei b'kamish ha'anyonim. Mamnis involves so many different things, and therefore it makes you into a wellspring. Therefore, if someone wants to reach this mila of being able to be a mulcha and gzelis v'chavolos, yasik b'din maminis, like Orif, and who should you follow? Yishamesh Shimon ben Anish she'asa kain. He did just the same thing. Lasoik b'din maminis, and through that he climbed the ladder. Lovay l'mayla himenu li'eschacham u'mumcha. That's how he became a chacham u'mumcha. L'zehu seder hamishna Bava Basra v'achares Sanhedrin. That's why Rebbe put Maseches Sanhedrin after Maseches Bava Basra. Kimitoich dinei mamonish shebe Maseches Bava Basra, by mastering the dinei mamonish that we learned in Maseches Bava Basra. Yavai l'mayla hayoshim imena. Then we'll be able to climb the ranks and become greater chachamim, worthy of paskening dinei nefashos, the geshailos that are in Sanhedrin. Tanu l'dinei gzelos v'chavolos to by mumchin. And that's what we lead into in Sanhedrin. I forgot what I don't know what the Dal means. The Gimel Gzelis v'Chavalois. That's why it starts in Sanhedrin, I guess. Sanhedrin starts of Dinei Mominus begimel, Gzelis v'Chavalois begimel. Right? That's how the mission Sanhedrin starts. I didn't take a sneak peek at it, but the Mashal is giving us a sneak peek. Down in Dinei Mominus is begimel hajoytois. And now that we finished Bava Basra, we're ready to take on Sanhedrin, because now we're big chachamim. We started off as regular guys, and by harving through Bava Basra, now we're chachamim mumchin, and therefore we're able to take on Masechah Sanhedrin. Okay, so let's see where we're holding. We just finished the Mishnah. Zok tehele Gemara vayter. Amar Ula said, Dvar Torah midaraisa echad milva b'shtar. Really, it doesn't make a difference if it's a milva or b'shtar. Either way, a milva automatically creates a lien on your properties, and therefore, even if you sell them, the malva should be able to seize them away. My time is shibud deraisa. The shibud that's created by a loan is a deraisa concept. But if that's the case, so why did Chazal come and take away the shibud from the chosum b'neichayin by a milval peh? Because the problem is it's going to grind commerce to a halt. Because if there's no shtar, there's no koil. So if we will allow a malva to seize purchased properties, no one is ever going to buy property because you don't know if there might be a loan here. A milva b'shtar you would have known about, but a milva peh you wouldn't have known about. So therefore Chazal jumped in and said, we're not letting you invoke your deraisidic right to take from the lakufes. Why don't they have the same concern about milva b'shtar? By milva b'shtar, any person buying property would have heard that this seller has liens, because milva b'shtar creates a cut. For Rabba, he took exactly the opposite perspective. For Rabba, Amar Dvar Torah echad milva b'shtar v'echad milva peh einoi goiva ela min yichasum b'neichayin. He's only goiva from the chasum b'neichayin. You know why? My time is shibud alav deiraisa. So therefore, Uma Tam Omru Malva B'Shtar Milva B'Shtar Goyva Min Chasam Shabbatim. So why do we allow a Milva B'Shtar to take from the Chasam Shabbatim if there's no technical right for him to have that schus? The Teretz, that's also takana. Kedei Shelo Tinol Delos B'Fnei Lovin. Nobody would ever want to lend out money if he has no recourse to collect on a lien on someone's field. So therefore, Chazal made a takana that you can collect from the Chasam Shabbatim. So Yachi Milval Penami, why didn't they make the same takana by Milval Peh? The Gemara Hasam less Lekala. There's no coil over there. So where did the Rabbanan see fit to put a lien on properties? That's if the purchaser can have a buyer beware that he'll know that there is a lien on this property. That only applies by Milval B'Shtar. By Milval Peh, the Chazal didn't do that. Frankly, me Amar Rabba. So you're telling me that the Rabba holds that Shibuda Lav Dairaisa. I'm going to prove to you that Rabba holds Shibuda Dairaisa. Because the Amar Rabba, Gavu Karka Yeshloi, Gavu Mois Einloi. We had a discussion earlier in the Masechta on from what does a Bechor get Pishnayim? Because remember, a Bechor only gets Pishnayim from monies that are in the estate, not monies that are owed to the estate, that are going to come later. And Rabbi said, if what they collected, if the estate collected karka from the loiva, yeshloi, but gova mois ain't. So the difference between karka and mois is not irrelevant to this discussion right now. But the moment you say govu karka yeshloi, that means there must have been a shibud. Because if there's no shibud, how could this be considered part of the estate? So it must be that Rabbi holds shibud deraisa. So how could in our Gemara we quote Rabbi saying shibud lav deraisa? Clearly, Rabbi says shibuda deraisa. And if you're going to say, let's swap it around over here. Let's say it's Rabbi who said shibuda deraisa and Ula who said shibuda lav deraisa. Zaktimor, you can't say that because the Amar Ula devar Torah b'choiv dine b'ziburis. So clearly, Ula is saying shibuda deraisa because devar Torah the b'choiv is entitled to something. Zaktimor, you're right. Rabba timer de b'nei ma'rava kamer v'lei leishvirli. Rabba over here who said shibuda lav deraisa, that's not really his shita. Rabba's shita himself is that shibuda is deraisa, just like Ula. But Rabba over here is only telling you that there happens to be b'nei ma'rava who hold that shibuda lav deraisa. Zok Gemara Rabba Shmuel Amar Tavayu, and we just quoted this Rabba Shmuel on Amar Aleph. Rabba Shmuel Amar Tavayu milval peh einoi goiva loy min hayarshin v'loy min halakukos. Why not? My time because Rabbi Shmuel hold shibuda lav deraisa. On the other hand, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, the Amri Tarvayu milval peh is goivim bein min hayarshim and bein min halakukos. My time shibuda deraisa. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lakish hold that shibuda deraisa. Meis very freak to Gemara. Hachoifer bor b'shus harabim. Someone goes and carelessly digs a bor b'shus harabim and creates a public hazard. And you know what happened? V'nafal olav shar v'hargoy. Someone shar is walking there down the street, got tripped over the bar that this guy made, and this is karma. And the shar fell on the guy who dug the bar and killed the guy. The halach is potter. Of course, the Baal Hashar is potter that his shar killed this person because this person dug the bar to cause the whole thing. V'loyoid, not only is there no chiyuv on the Baal Hashar, but more. If the shar got injured, the guy who dug the bar is responsible, and even though he's dead, Yershe Baal Habar Chayovin L'Shalem Demei Shor L'Bailim. The Yershim, they lost their father because the father did something stupid. Now they also have to pay for the value of the shor if the shor gets injured. But the problem is, if you hold shibuda lav deraisa, this is a milval peh. Why do they have to pay for their father's chiyuv? Elamai, you have a chloride from here that shibuda is deraisa, and that's why the shibud that the father has upon himself for having dug this bar and caused damage is the onus is on the children to pay. It must be that shibud is deraisa and it's there on his nechosim, and therefore these have to pay. This is a milva. It's a liability. Any liability that the father has is a milva. Amar Abellah, Amar Rav, maybe it's b'shamat b'din. Normally, just the chiyuv that's created by somebody who's mazik. That's not a milva, like Duvi's saying. It's not a milva yet. But here it's speaking where before the guy died, they actually had a dayanim there who passed in this chayiv. Now they make that into a chiyuv. Because once there's a madbedin, Rashbam says, the Maisa Bezdin can milva b'shtar dami. Once Bezdin is mechayiv you, that's already like a regular milva b'shtar. Frek Gemara, how is that possible that he went to din? V'harger katoni. Doesn't say he got killed. When exactly did they go to a din Torah? Amar Vada Bar Ava, she'asay treifa. He didn't die right away. The ox fell on him and made him into a treifa. So he was still alive enough to be able to paskin. But Frek Gemara, he died there in the bar. Amar Abnachmin, Tani Tana, Mace, V'kavroi. He died in the bar. So it's not like he was in the hospital for 3 days till he died. He died right there. Dr. Moore, you're right. It says Mace V'kavroi. Dr. Moore, no. The Yasvidina Apuma, the Yasvidayani Apuma de Berev. It's speaking where there happened to have been a bezin sitting around as this guy was digging his hole, and they paskin on the spot as the animal fell on him that he was chayv, and that's why his children have to pay. Otherwise, they would not have to pay. So Tuvi's asking, is this a good shayla to send into Rabbi Yirmiyah? Zok to Gemara, Amar Papa, Hilchasa, what is Allah Lamaisa? Milva Alpeh, Goivim in a Yarshim, the Eina Goivim in al Kuchos. So he splits it up. Rabbi Yochanan and Shlokish, as well as Rabbi Shmuel, lumped Goivim in a Yarshim together with Goivim in al Kuchos. Rav Papa says there's a difference. Milva Alpeh, you will be Goivim in Yarshim, but you will not be Goivim from al Kuchos. Goivim in a Yarshim, why? If I can never collect from the children of my loiva, I'm going to be very hesitant to lend money because I have a very poor chance of getting it back. But if we won't let the malva collect from the kuchos, the less like kala, because the kuchos have no way of protecting themselves. They have no way of knowing there's a lien, and they won't want to lend money. They won't ever want to buy stuff. They won't want to buy stuff if there's always that danger. Okay, we'll stop here. Tomorrow we're going to finish Daf Kufa and Bava, Bava Basra, and we'll probably have time to start Sanhedrin. So tomorrow I would ask the Olam to bring their Gemara Sanhedrin as well.